I'm loving Australia more and more all the time. I don't get that back home. It has been so fun to be here with you all these past few days. There's no place like Australia to come and visit when it comes to hospitality, and people are so friendly and warm and just so gracious. So thank you for your hospitality toward Jennifer, me, and Steve, and the other guests who have been here. We really have enjoyed our time at this camp meeting, and hopefully, as things cycle through, perhaps we'll be back in a few years, because that'd be great fun as well. Many have been asking me about Creation Health. Is it available here? Can they do it? My perception is there seems to be a pretty strong interest in using this tool to talk about the Adventist health message. So I wanted to let you know today what we have available. I want to let you know what I'm working on, because there's something in process. So I'm going to go right to the slides and show you what we have here. My clicker might not be working. I don't know. Is it working back there, guys? Just wait? Okay. All right. Pardon me? It's getting? All right. There we go. Good. All right. So Creation Health, this is the screen you're becoming very familiar with. Oh, by the way, while I'm going through this, if there are any ushers left, we're going over Outlook today. So I do have an outline for you. If you don't have an outline, please raise your hand, and one of the ushers will make sure you get an outline. At the end, we'll go through and fill out the blanks as we make the application for today's presentation. So if anybody doesn't have an Outlook outline, just raise your hand, and the ushers will make sure to give it to you, okay? All right, so what we have with Creation Health, we do have a couple of things. We have more than a couple, but we have a Creation Health seminar kit. This is because I've had a lot of people come up and ask me. I'm not here trying to push Creation Health on you, okay? Thought it'd be easiest to do it this way. We have a seminar kit, and included in that kit, you have 9 DVDs. The DVDs have our medical experts teaching the science behind these principles, so if you're not a clinical person, no worries. You can still teach this because our experts are teaching the science. Included with that are our PowerPoints. You've seen some that I've been using. We include in this kit almost 800 PowerPoints, which is more than you will ever use or need, but we put that many in there so you could pick and choose what would be appropriate for your audience. So you might use 25 to 35 slides. Average presentation comes with 80 slides. You wouldn't want to use all 80 slides, but it comes with those. And on the slides, on the PowerPoint slides themselves, there are speaker's notes below them. So you need to make it your own presentation, but you have talking notes that tells you how to present that information. So that's been done for you. So you have the DVD, which I've not been playing our DVDs. Normally you'd start with a 15-minute DVD, then go into the lecture with some PowerPoint slides. In the instructor's guide, you have some accelerated learning techniques that have been formulated into small group exercises. So your participants can begin interacting with each other as they begin integrating this information into their life. So you have the DVDs, you have the PowerPoint, you have the small group exercises, and as an instructor, you get one textbook. We strongly encourage everybody in your class gets a textbook, but one textbook comes with the Creation Health Seminar Kit, and along with the seminar kit also comes the ability to take the training online to be a certified Creation Health instructor. It's like 8 hours long, goes through every minute of the Creation Health material. So you get everything that you need. Everything's been done for you, which is really nice. Means it's not a lot of work. That kit sells for $299. You get everything. Now, you can buy it from us now from the States, and we ship to New Zealand and Australia, semi-regularly. Unfortunately, the shipping is $400 because we ship by air, because usually churches are calling us and they need it within 14 days. The longer you can plan ahead, the better it is. So what I've been trying to do, what my team has been doing, since I'm a pastor, and I hate to see churches spend $400 on shipping, sometimes you have to, because you have a serious, high-priority strategic meeting happening and you need the material, and it's worth paying that money. But I want the churches to take that money, invest it into mission or ministry in their local area, because that $400 can go a long ways, even if it's for a Sabbath school. You know what I'm trying to say? So what my team is working on right now is we're working with entities here on this continent. We're exploring our options to see what would be the best win-win solution so that we can begin distributing this material from right here in Australia, which makes the shipping go away for you guys. And I think from the looks of it, thank you. So I think, if all goes according to plan, we probably will be ready and geared up to go by September is what I'm hoping for, okay? So that's a few months away. That gives you some time to think and lay some groundwork, all right? So that's what we have, this Creation Health Seminar Kit. We have a small group component. You can read about that online. In fact, Inter-America just ran the Creation Health small groups. They had 7,000 small groups. They were piloting it there. No, it's Venezuela. 7,000 small groups. And they were using Creation Health as an evangelistic tool. I mean, that's what they wanted to use it for. And as a result of those 7,000 Creation Health small groups, they had 3,500 people sign up for Bible studies that they're working with right now. So that's how they're using it. But the small group is a very, very good resource. You can see you have the tote bag, you have stationery, you have posters, we have all sorts of other information. We have a Creation Health set of, in the lower right-hand corner, those are pregnancy guides, applying the Creation Health principles to mothers who are about to give birth. So that's some good stuff. We have banners. We have everything that you would need. So that's a little bit about Creation Health. If you need to reach me, feel free to email me. This is my contact information. I do what I can to help churches when it comes to Creation Health. I'll leave that up there for a second while you, if you want to copy it down. Lynell, LaMountain, at flhosp.org. That stands for Florida Hospital, flhosp.org. I think there's a growing interest in Creation Health. In fact, I've had people come up and say, hey, we have even a building. Someone was telling me yesterday, they have a building in the, I forget what area, is it Warburton? Warburton area? That maybe they're being interested in seeing if they could capture that building for health ministries and make Creation Health be, one of the tools that perhaps the church over there would use. This is not the end-all, be-all. There's some wonderful, wonderful seminars out there. New Start's wonderful. CHIP is a great seminar. So there's room for all of these as we try to reach people for God's kingdom. So that's a little bit about what we have to offer from Florida Hospital, and we are continually developing and creating more content. So there's more to come. This will not be all that there is. Now this morning, I wanted to share with you also, before we get into our Outlook topic, I wanted to show you what a church school is doing to make the health message a part of its culture. Yesterday I showed you what a sheriff's department is doing under the direction of a Seventh-day Adventist church. There is a small church school in Daytona Beach, was small, and I've been working with their pastor for 2 years. And he's the type of guy, and I love him because he thinks so differently. He said, you know what, I'm not interested in teaching Creation Health to my kids in the form of 8 presentations. He said, what we want to try to do is take the Creation Health philosophy and create a new culture within our school where those 8 principles are actually activated. They're operational. So it's not just 8 seminars, 8 presentations, and you're done. It's a whole school that's built and operating around the Seventh-day Adventist health message. He wanted to see what effect it might have on his students and on his school. So the video I'm going to show you, we just filmed it a few weeks ago. His name's Pastor Jerry Wasmer. His wife is the principal of the school. I think you're going to love seeing how our health message is changing and impacting one of our schools in Florida back in America. So let's play the video.
We are Indigo Christian Junior Academy. We've got pre-K through 8th grade in Daytona Beach, Florida. And we are together with the Daytona Beach Seventh-day Adventist Church. We were looking for something that would help the church and help the school grow together. And we were looking for something that would set our school apart. And it just really hit one day when we said, a lot of people come to seminars about Creation Health, and they sign up, they enroll themselves, so to speak. What if we showed up with the whole school? What if we brought Indigo Christian Junior Academy and said, we want to sign up? And they said, what, all of you? No, there's just one of us. One school, but everything. We want to put it all on the table, and we want to see what it would look like if we let the Creation Health principles run rampant in our school. Since Creation Health seems to be so holistic, trying to make the whole person more healthy, we thought that there was a good chance that it might make our whole school more healthy also.
Creation Health is beautiful because anyone can do it. It's about one small step, not about the grand picture, but about making one positive change, and we can do that.
The way we began the process is we studied the 8 letters. We studied the principles, and then we said, what areas of our school might these apply in? But we noticed that our staff was very conscientious. They wanted to be good teachers, but there's just not enough time in the day. And coming up to Sabbath, coming up to starting a new week on a Monday, even going home at night, there was so much for them to do, and it was difficult for them to get any rest. And so as we studied the R, looking at our staff, we knew we needed to do some work. We decided that we would pay for a substitute for our teachers on periodic days where they could come in, their classes would be taken care of, and they could just work, where they could hopefully get ahead, get caught up, so that when they go home at night, when they come to the weekend, they can get some rest. We asked the students what they would like to learn about choice. They wanted to learn to manage money, and they wanted to learn to make decisions on their own. And so they created a classroom economy.
It's a rough time in the economy, and some of their parents struggle with paying bills, and the kids come with these stresses to the school. And so we said, well, let's learn in our classroom environment how to manage our money. So all the kids applied for jobs, and they wrote their qualifications on their applications, and I wrote them over the summer. I wrote letters of acceptance to them, and then they came at the beginning of the school year ready to start their jobs. They have to sign in every morning, and they get minimum wage. This was voted by the class that they would get minimum hourly wages. If they don't sign in, they don't get paid.
The class business manager every month will tabulate the time they've come, the time they've signed in, and will calculate their fines, will calculate their bonuses or raises or whatever they have, and she'll put their money in an envelope, and that's payday.
Some of them have experienced how painful it can be to not be responsible, because when they come in the morning, they have to sign in saying that they're there, and if they don't sign in, they don't get paid.
Today is payday. The students are very excited, and unfortunately we have a couple students that today owe more than they're going to get paid. All of the students have to make a choice every month what they're going to do with their money. And if they're messy, or if they don't do their classroom jobs, they get fined. Sometimes they accrue fines at a great, at a very quick rate. And so right now there are some students that are in danger of having their desks repossessed. And what that means is that if they don't pay their fines on the day they get paid, the business manager has a prerogative to repossess their desk until they're able to pay their fines.
She is $465.96 in debt. I guess we're gonna have to take her desk away.
The biggest change that I've seen in the kids is just their overall attitude. They just seem happy to be here. I have never in all my years of teaching seen something make such a huge difference to the kids in the school. They used to seem kind of tired and quiet, a little more angst in them, and now they have bright faces.
Once they learn that they have a choice, they believe they can change the school. They believe they can change their lives. They believe that they can change the world as a result of this program.
Creation Health is awesome. It's become more orderly in the school, and more kids are looking to coming, and we have more choices because we've been focusing on the TC. So, and for me, I like it a lot.
I see that they're eating their apples for snacks, and they're not coming home, and they're making better educated decisions, and maybe it's a good peer pressure, but they're learning about positive peer pressure, and they're learning about healthful things and feeling good about yourself and getting rest. They're going to bed. They're getting up in the morning to come to school. They're doing their homework without being asked. They're coming home from school and they're excited and they're alive, which is good. Gave me my kids back.
Any other examples about choice? We make choices every day. It's like teaching the whole child. You're teaching a lot of different aspects of healthy living. Even at the age of 4 and 5, they can grasp the concepts. I mean, some of the words like I is interpersonal relationships. When I break it down and say, okay, how are you to other people? Are you kind? Do you smile? And they get it.
The students love the program. The students love learning about creation health, but they love putting it into practice. Perhaps the biggest difference we've seen is that the kids are empowered to make decisions, to make choices that will make themselves, their families, and the whole school and the whole community in general more healthy. As a result of the Creation Health Schools pilot program, we've doubled our enrollment, we're more visible in the community, we have a better reputation in the community, our students' test scores have improved, they're happier, our parents are more satisfied, and it's completely changed everything that we do.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, definitely. When's the last time you saw one of our young kids, big smile on her face, talking about how wonderful the Seventh-day Adventist health message is, huh? It's good stuff. In fact, I need to follow up on a couple of things here. One, just in case you're worried that we're teaching some form of aggressive capitalism in the United States of America in our school, the desk that got repossessed, well, the day we were there filming, there was actually 2 desks that were repossessed, and our team was really kind of anxious to see what was going to happen here, and that was something they totally decided to do on their own. But unfortunately, the desk that was repossessed, one of them that afternoon, was that of the best friend of the business manager. So before the school bell rang, the business manager pulled her friend to the side and said, "I'm going to pay for all of your debt so your desk doesn't have to be repossessed." Now, this is all play money. All the money you saw was play money. None of it is real, but it serves a point to teach them how things work. Well, there was another young boy in that very same class whose desk got repossessed, and he was a little bit, disappointed, but he realized what was happening was a result of his choice, and, things happen when we make or don't make certain choices. So that next morning, it was a Thursday morning when he came back to school, his whole class had gotten together, and they had done an inventory to see who had how much money. His class rallied together, gave their money to get his desk out of repossession, so he got his desk back as well. It's just an amazing thing to see how these kids are taking the principles we've been teaching for 150 plus years as a church and making them part of their culture, their educational environment. The young boy who was on there and said that we're focusing on C and he enjoys it, a little dark-haired boy, he's actually their traffic manager. And because of the enrollment doubled this year, and they're maxed out, and their school board just voted right before Christmas, unanimously voted they're going to build a new school. On that property, they still have room, but they need to increase their space. They're having to turn away people from the community who want their kids in this school now. Total change, total turnaround from what it was even 3 years ago. So this little boy, he's the traffic manager because now, with the enrollment doubled and the space maxed out, you have a lot of traffic there in the morning coming into that church school, and they put him in charge of traffic flow. They've given responsibility to these kids to figure things out. And of course, the adults are there to coach and to manage and to make sure everything's positive and healthy. So he has his traffic cones set up, and he actually came up with a traffic flow that the adults are saying is as good as any adult supervisor there was thinking about in the back of his or her mind. So, but one thing he needed was he realized that maybe they could increase the safety of that whole traffic flow situation, and one thing he knew was having these orange reflective traffic vests would make it possible for parents to see his team easier, his crew easier. So the teacher said, "Hey, you want traffic vests, you write a proposal up, and we'll take it to the board." And so he wrote, this kid, he couldn't have been more than 10 or 11, maybe younger, he wrote a proposal, presented it to the school board, and the school board, this is the adult school board, and they voted and bought the traffic vests and gave it to his team. It's amazing to see how these kids are being trained to take responsibility instead of just slacking their way through life, The school board is so impressed with what's going on that they have given each classroom $1,000 to use for those kids to decide how they want to make their classroom a reflection of God's environment, so to make their educational surroundings inspiring and supportive. Additionally, that kid who's the traffic guy, he and a partner have teamed up and been asked to build a nature trail because there are about, maybe 6 or 7 acres of trees and stuff. I've been there. And so they have designed a nature trail. And of their own accord, on that nature trail, they're going to have prayer stations, and there's going to be one for each day of creation. And on day 5, when the birds were created, there's going to be, at the 5th prayer station, it's going to be a bird sanctuary. All ideas they hatched from their mind to have in their school to make their school reflect God's original plan for not only living life to the fullest, but growing and developing into responsible, mature, happy young men and women. I'm just thrilled with that story. And we are working on making Creation Health. We're working on a curriculum for Creation Health, and I'm also working with this pastor for him to be able to come up with a process that other school boards can follow that his board did. Because it can't be a school board coming in and saying, now we're going to be creation healthy, you know? It has to be an organic, dynamic process. And I'm almost finished with him with coming up with a tool that mirrors the conversation he had with his school board people and other leaders that got them to where they are right now. And I'm thinking that we'll have those tools available in August of this year. And maybe, I don't know anything about the educational situation here in our conference or throughout Australia. I don't know if you have church schools or not. But if you do, maybe this is something that would be of interest to your kids or to your teachers. I don't know. But I want you to see how a Seventh-day Adventist church school is taking our Seventh-day Adventist health message we've been preaching for over 150 years, and I've given it a fresh twist to begin rebuilding a new culture of learning in their school. And it's working. I don't know how many Adventist schools double their attendance in 12 months. Usually they struggle with the other side of that spectrum, right? Now, as I look at that story, what I see is, a group of people that are really modeling what can happen when you choose a certain kind of outlook to live by. So this morning we're going to go over outlook. I'm going to say, you may disagree with me, and I welcome you to disagree with me if you'd like to, because this is something we debate very vigorously back at the hospital. It is my opinion, and not everybody agrees with me back at the hospital, it is my opinion that outlook is the most important of the 8 principles. Yes, choice is important, but if you don't know, if because of your thinking and your outlook, you're not aware that you can make a choice, then you're not going to make the choice. It starts here. And I have a lot of pastors say, well, no, trusting God is the most important one because you're dealing with the salvation of the soul. Absolutely, you are. That is the most important issue we will wrestle with, we'll deal with, we'll share. But when it comes to this seminar, you have people who believe God is a punishing, vindictive God. You have people who believe that He doesn't support them, doesn't love them. You have people, since this is a bridge event seminar, an outreach seminar, you have people who don't even like God when they start coming and taking this Creation Health class. But as you work with them and you begin shaping their outlook, you start creating within their mind a new way of thinking, guess what happens? They have a new way of viewing God. They have a new way of viewing what it means to have choice and free will and to be empowered. It all starts right here, in my opinion. Now, others feel differently and they feel strongly, and we'll have a very fun time, discussing this for years to come. But I want to share with you my convictions today that I think that this is the most important topic of the whole Creation Health series, and I saved it for last as a kind of a send-off for us from this health seminar. So let's get into Outlook this morning and see what we've learned. Outlook is the key to a life of abundance. And the thing with outlook is, the Bible told us a long time ago that we are what we think. In fact, I am trying to get my... So guys, is it working back there for you? There we go, thank you. My batteries, I think, are getting a little weak. That's probably the problem. The Bible says in Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks, so is he. Let me tell you something. You're going to see how true that is today by the time we're finished. It's amazing. I don't know if you've seen this. There's an old poem from a long time ago. It says, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. And it all starts right here. When we talk about a positive outlook, we need to realize that a positive outlook is a gift that you give yourself. But it's also true that a negative outlook is a gift that you give yourself. So if you're going to give yourself a gift of an outlook, make it be a positive one. That's your choice. Right now, nobody else is going to determine the attitude that you have when you leave this place today. It's you. You're responsible for that. Nobody else, nothing that's happening to you, it's you. It's me. We decide that. Now, the interesting thing, when you choose to have a positive outlook, the minute you choose to have an optimistic outlook, something happens to our physiology. Immediately what happens is there is an increase in the number of natural killer cells that kill off the diseases that come into our bodies. So if you want to be optimistic, if you want to have a stronger immune system, if you want to ward off disease and be healthier and stronger, have a positive outlook. If you want to be sick and weak, be pessimistic. And you're going to have a drop-off of those natural killer cells that are there to defend you from getting ill. Now, when we talk about being optimistic or being pessimistic, covered this slide on Friday. If you're optimistic, you've increased your chances of living longer by 50%. If you're pessimistic, you've just increased your chances of dying prematurely by 50%. So if there's someone on your church board or school board or finance committee that's difficult to get along with and they're negative and pessimistic and you're optimistic, just know that time is on your side. You can wait them out. I wish I'd have known that when I was pastoring, but I didn't, so just hang in there. An explanatory style is what determines whether or not you're optimistic or pessimistic. Now, this is a very important slide. We need to read every word because it's going to explain why maybe some of us are the way that we are. Dr. Martin Seligman, who's known for his work in optimism, writes in his book, Learned Optimism, your habitual way of explaining bad events, your explanatory style, is more than just the words you mouth when you fail. It is a what of thought? It is a habit of thought learned where? In childhood and adolescence. Your explanatory style stems directly from your view of your place in the world, whether you think you are valuable and deserving or worthless and hopeless. It is the hallmark of whether you are an optimist or a pessimist. So although we can say confidently that we are in charge of our outlook right now, and nobody else is going to give us the outlook that we're going to have, the fact of the matter is, a long time ago in your life, when you were very, very, very young, the adults in your life said things and did things and interacted with you in such a way that it formed in your brain whether you were going to be an optimistic person or a pessimist. And it really kind of breaks my heart to know that, and this will give you a new viewpoint on people who are negative. I mean, I know they're annoying. And I know that sometimes you just want to do all you can to get them out of your life or to avoid them. But really, based on this research, as a generality, let's just say as a generality, not an absolute, those types of people back in their childhood were brought up to feel like they were worthless and meant nothing. And my heart breaks for them. Just reflect back on your childhood. What did you hear the pastors saying when they preached their sermons? How did you see the Sabbath school teachers trying to bring order and discipline into the classroom? Did they use guilt? Did they use manipulation? When it came to your parents, when they disciplined you, or when you wanted to do something, you had a dream, you had a hope. It doesn't matter if it's a childhood dream or hope. How did your parents react? Did they support you? Did they say, no, we're not that type of family. Other people do that, we can't. What conversations took place back then? And the reason I'm bringing it up is not in any way to criticize the people who did their best to raise us up and train us in the Lord. Not that at all. I believe our parents and teachers and pastors have always, for the most part, have acted in manner of what they thought was in following God's leading and what they thought was in our best interest. But the fact is, you can be sincere about those things and still be sincerely wrong. And so I know it's affected people in this audience. It's affected people everywhere I go. It affects us. Now, the truth is, when it comes to someone feeling that they're not worthy or insignificant, are you worthless and insignificant? You're not worthless and insignificant. One thing that really sets me off, that makes me really, really, hopefully righteously indignant, is when I hear someone up front teaching or preaching or singing, and they have a comment that goes along these lines: I am nothing. I'm lower than a worm. I'm no more valuable than a piece of dust under my bed. Baloney. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. In fact, you were created in God's image. And when you come down hard on yourself and say, I'm nothing, I'm worthless, I'm nothing more than a dust ball under the bed, you're actually applying that to God. You were made in His image. And God's not a piece of dust under somebody's bed, let me tell you. God's not lower than a worm in the sand. You're His child, you're His son, you're His daughter. You've been created just a little less than the angels. You're something. And God came and died so that you can be with Him forever. I don't think God's going to come, and I don't think God's going to give up Jesus Christ, His one and only begotten Son, to salvage a few pieces of dust under somebody's bed. You matter. And I know that if you've been raised to where you feel worthless and inadequate, low self-esteem, that this might be a constant battle throughout your lifetime. But your attitude and through the gift of choice God has given you, you can say, that's not me. I'm a child of the King. I'm an heir to the throne. You need to tell yourself, talk to yourself these new scripts, these verses in the Bible we find from Jesus and His grace. Stop listening to the voices from the past echoing through time, still trying to get you to believe what they said you were. Stop listening to them. There's a new voice echoing within your heart today. It's the voice of Jesus Christ. And He's brought you a new reality. He says we are new creatures in Him after all, right? So whatever pastors or teachers or parents or friends or family members ever told you when you were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, anything that does not reflect what the Bible has to say that is a truth about who you are as a child of God, just jettison it. Just get it out of your life. Love them. Know that they were doing the best that they could. They weren't intentionally trying to harm you. Most of them were not. Just let it go. And find your meaningfulness in your relationship with Jesus Christ and His grace. So the explanatory style is huge. If you are pessimistic and negative, and there are some in here that are because there are some in every audience, it's humanity, just know that you're not a mean, bad, hopeless person. You have a particular type of programming up here that was installed without you even realizing it was being installed. It was installed many, 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 many years ago. But God has given us a new mind and a new heart. And you can begin living according to the reality of who you are this minute, which is a fearfully, wonderfully made person who made in the image of God who is just awesome. That's who you are. You might not believe it, but if you keep repeating it and keep reading it, you'll get to the point where you believe it more and more and more, and that's progress. This whole thing, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what they say, whether it's about health. I don't care what they say if it's about theology, and I know people disagree with me on this. It's never about perfection. It's about progress. We're perfect in Christ Jesus and His robe of righteousness. That's been settled. So I don't even worry about it. I like to focus on the progress part, not because of legalism or works-related type of righteousness. I like focusing on the transformation progress part because as we work and cooperate with the Holy Spirit to increase our capacity to receive Him and to live according to His ways, we are able to live life ever more fully, not only here, but there. So for me, it's an interest in going after the gusto, living as fully as I can. That's what's driving me. That's why I focus on the progress part. The perfection part, the status of being saved, and even the assurance part, that's all been settled by Jesus Christ. I don't give it a second thought. And you shouldn't either, in my opinion, if I may so humbly suggest. Thank you. Thank you. It's an interesting thing when you look at pessimists and optimists. Dr. Seligman continues to write. He's done research with college kids, and he wanted to see what impact their attitude would have, or what relationship their attitude would have to their skills. And so they followed them through school. They watched kids who were highly skilled and were on it. They had their act together. They noticed that if they were pessimists, they always fell below their potential. You took a kid maybe who was a C average in high school, who maybe people wondered, even his own family, if he was really going to get his act together and make it through college. If they took that kid and he had an optimistic attitude in college, despite his skill level being way down, something in his attitude compensated, and he far exceeded what he should have been able to accomplish where he was with his skills. So Seligman has written, over and above their talent test scores, we repeatedly find that pessimists drop below their potential and optimists exceed it. I have come to think that the notion of potential without the notion of optimism has very little meaning. I would suggest to you that this just does not only apply to kids in college, this applies to us all. So if we're in church, let's apply it to church. If we're in church and we feel like God is calling us to do something and we're pessimistic and negative about it, are we going to rise to our potential or fall below it when it comes to implementing that in our community? We're going to fall below. You can have the greatest preacher, you can have the greatest Sabbath school teachers, you can have the greatest board of elders, you can have the finest financial minds in your church, and if you're negative and pessimistic about what God is calling you to do, your church is going to stumble its way through. If you don't have the most brilliant people, most talented people in your church, but you're optimistic and have hearts full of faith, guess what? God's going to bless you, and you're going to far exceed what you ever could have otherwise. At work, at home, in your businesses, be optimistic. Maybe you think when you compare yourself to somebody else in your field that you are way down here and they're way up here. Doesn't matter. If your attitude's way up here and their attitude's way down here, you're going to perform better than they are if you're looking at a competitive advantage in the marketplace. But just living from day to day, forget business, forget college, forget church, as blasphemous as that might sound, you owe it to yourself to live with an attitude that's positive and hopeful and pleasant and filled full of joy, regardless of anything else. But there's something that we see with optimists and pessimists. Pessimists, let's just compare the two for a minute. When it comes to success, pessimists say, if they get lucky enough to get successful, they say, well, it was because of somebody else's work, or I just got lucky. When it comes to failure, any failure they come across, I think it's because of a personal failure in their own life, an inadequacy in their life. They look at a crisis as an overwhelming obstacle, and they will wring their hands, and they'll worry, and they'll be concerned, and they'll complain. And it really boils down to the last bullet point there. They have they have feelings of lack of control over their life. They don't feel like they're in control at all. Remember the dog story I told you on Friday? They feel like life is happening to them instead of they're happening to life. So that's what a pessimist's orientation is. So let's look at what an optimist's orientation is. An optimist who is successful says, you know what? I'm successful because of the personal effort I put into this. When it comes to failure, they say, well, I failed because of somebody else or because of bad luck. They don't say it's because of some personal inadequacy or flaw that they have that they failed. When it comes to a crisis, every optimist I know, I've seen them, I've heard them, I've listened to them, they see them as sometimes challenges, but there's even a more optimistic spin on the word challenge. What I hear them saying oftentimes is they see them as opportunities. Opportunities. And if it's a real challenge, or if you're a pessimist and you'd say, man, that's a real problem, what I see your best optimist saying is, man, that's rich with opportunity. Rich with opportunity. I hear our CEO and president at Florida Hospital say that a few times a year. This is rich with opportunity. As soon as I hear that guy say it's rich with opportunity, I go, oh man. Oh man. But an optimist lives his or her life with feelings of control over their life. So their motivation and their power is what we call intrinsic, is from within, versus extrinsic, from without. That means they're not going to be really influenced or persuaded or shaped by everything that's happening outside of them. They're going to be living according to what's happening within them. And so it's like the difference between, and you've heard this analogy before, it's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer. A pessimist is a thermometer, an optimist is a thermostat. A pessimist is somebody who goes through life reacting all along the way. An optimist is someone who goes through life acting and acting. So a life of pessimism is a life of reaction. A life of optimism is a life of action. See the difference? Okay. Now let's look at the mind-body connection. This is going to get really interesting. They have tracked people to see what effect worry has on them. Now this study I'm going to share with you is a 20-year study. They studied these people for 20 years, and they found that those who had a moderate level of worry had almost twice the risk of heart attack, and those with the highest level of worry had 2.5 times the risk of heart attack compared to those who rarely or never worried. So if you worry a lot, according to this study, you're increasing your risk of heart attack by 250%. Now, and the reason is, if you worry, you're having a cascade of stress hormones coursing through your body, and we've just read recently in the research that those stress hormones, they're like a catalyst for coronary, cardiovascular disease, right? So I want to ask you, don't answer me out loud, do you worry a lot? Do you worry a lot? And I want to ask you this question. Is worry a choice? Right. And depending on the outlook that you have up here, this outlook is going to determine whether you choose to worry a lot or worry rarely. But worry, my friend, is a choice. There's nothing you can do about that situation sometimes. But do you know what the best thing you can do when you're in a situation where you're starting to worry? There's only two things I know that work. Pray, claim God's promises. That's right. You can do that no matter what. In many situations, if you're encountering an opportunity that's filling you with worry, you need to ask yourself, what can I do right now? What action can I take right now to bring improvement in this area? And as soon as you start taking action, it kind of disengages the worry muscle of your brain. Action kind of neutralizes worry. In most cases. That's not always the case. I think back to our soldiers who have served our countries. There's some times that they had to act under the most fearful circumstances. But for you and I, action typically neutralizes worry. All right. They took people, and this was a 30-year study right here. When they first started this study, they had 839 patients. And they wanted to see what effect pessimism and optimism would have on the course of their lives. So 30 years later, as they tracked these people, and how they started was they gave them a self-reported questionnaire at the beginning, and 30 years later, as they tracked them, 447 of the people were still alive, the original 800. And what they found from those people is the optimists enjoyed less pain, increased physical functioning, they had a better health perception of their health, and they had increased social functioning and mental health. So this optimism thing is just not something that happens and then goes away every few days or every few weeks or few months. It's really a lifestyle that yields advantages and benefits for years and years and years. Why wouldn't you want to be an optimist? I can't figure it out. Why wouldn't you want to be an optimist? And I'm preaching to the choir here, as you'll soon see. Let's look at laughter in your heart. Look at this mind-body connection. They took 24 patients who had had heart attacks. And over the course of the next 12 months, they wanted to see what impact laughter would have on subsequent heart attacks. Because if you've had a heart attack once, it's likely you'll have a heart attack again. So in this study, what they did was they took one group, and that group watched every day for a year a 30-minute funny video every day. The other group had relatively quiet time. There was nothing. They just sat there and were silent. At the end of a year, the group that had been watching 30 minutes of funny videos every day, of that group, only 2 had had heart attacks again. Of the group that just had a time of silence, there were 10 in that group that had heart attacks. And what they found was, the reason why is, when you look at this chart, they both started off with the same cortisol levels, as you can see, up at 100. The yellow line is the group that watched the funny video. You can see how quickly and drastically their cortisol levels dropped. In fact, it dropped from 100 for the funny video group down to almost 50. And the quiet time people, theirs stayed up over 80. Just being able to drop their cortisol by that many more points yielded such a shocking outcome where only 2 people had heart attacks versus 10. So if you're worrying and you're anxious, just know that stress is doing a number on your body. And you owe it to yourself not to let this happen to you. And the only person who can decide that this is not going to happen to you is you. They say when we were kids, as adults, we laugh 15 times a day. Children laugh over 400 times a day, they say. But I am reminded that my son, who's at home happily playing with his grandma and grandpa, he doesn't have to worry about the rent, doesn't have to worry about the car payment, doesn't have to worry about putting groceries on the table, doesn't have to worry about fighting rush hour traffic twice a day in downtown Orlando, but still, we need to try to find the lighter side of life. But there are times when life is not a matter to be laughing about. Life comes at us and things happen. And so when that happens, we should at least try to be hopeful. That's a part of an optimistic attitude. Because hopelessness has a terrible, terrible effect on people's lives. They found that people who were highly hopeless had a much more rapid progression of atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, Parkinson's, and men who were highly hopeless had a threefold increased risk of death from violence or injury. So if you can't see the lighter side of life, and you're going down a path that's going to fill you with hopelessness, and hopelessness is defined as having a negative expectation about what's going to happen to you. If you're going down that path, then what we need to do is practice hopefulness. No matter what you're going through, you can always be hopeful. It might be hope that's being expressed through tears that are shed. You might have gotten the worst news you can imagine. Maybe you've just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Maybe you heard your mother, your sister, your dear friend has been diagnosed with cancer and it's a terminal outcome. Cure is probably not going to happen. You know, even in those moments, since we have the grace of Christ in our hearts, we can still have hope because this is not the end-all be-all to our life. In fact, it is so important. I'm anxious to share this with you. Norman Cousins is probably known as he started what's been called the biology of hope. And he told a story of physician William Buchholz that the Western Journal of Medicine printed. Dr. Buchholz was sitting at a table one morning. He was there at a national conference. Oncologists were there to talk about cancer and treatments and interventions. And Buchholz overheard two doctors talking back and forth. And one doctor said, you know, I don't understand it. He said, I use the same drugs and treatment as you do. And he said, yet I have a 22% success rate with my cancer patients, and yet you have a 74% success rate. What is the deal? And see, what usually happens with these oncologists when they treat these patients is they give them 4 drugs. They give them etoposide, platinol, oncovin, and hydroxyurea. And so instead of telling the patient, I'm giving you those 4 drugs I just named, they'll say, I'm giving you EPO. They make an acronym. Etoposide is E, platinol is P, oncovin's O, and hydroxyurea is H. So they say, I'm giving you EPO. So the guy that had 22% success rate told his patients, I'm giving you a drug protocol called EPO. The guy that had the 74% success rate used the same drugs. But you know what he told his patients? He just flipped the acronym around. He said, I'm giving you hope. These drugs will give you a good chance to survive this disease. That was the only difference. And simply turning that acronym around from EPO to hope gave that second doctor a 52% increased success rate. Because his patients were going through that disease with hopefulness now. You don't have to be a clinical person, rocket science. You don't have to be a PhD. In your church, when somebody's hurting, you don't even have to have all of the answers. If you can figure out, through the guidance of the Holy Spirit, a way to bring them some hope right now, you've done something amazing for them. Maybe bringing them hopefulness is as simple as hugging them and letting them know that they're not alone, and that gives birth to hope into their hearts. Don't underestimate the power of hopefulness. All right. I want to talk about the placebo effect. Still in the mind-body connection here. Placebo is really a useless pill or treatment, but people are led to believe it's going to help them. So, they gave a pill to bald men and said, this pill is going to make your hair grow back. Their hair started growing back. Let's go down to the third one. They took I can't believe this. They took people who were experiencing knee pain, and they said, we're going to give you surgery to make it go away. They wheeled them into the operating room, wheeled out, they had their knee bandaged and everything else, but no surgery was ever done. But the person had been put under and thought it had been done. And although there was no surgery, the outcome was the same as those who had had surgery, because they believed that they had had surgery. This fourth one really kills me. They took a group of women who were nausea and they were vomiting, and they said, we're going to give you a pill. It's going to cure your nausea and make you stop vomiting. So what they did was, they gave them a pill, and indeed, their nausea and vomiting stopped. But you know the pill that they gave them? You know what it was? It was Ipecac. Ipecac is the pill they give you to induce vomiting. I know, I was given one when I was a kid because I took a whole bottle of baby aspirin because they tasted like Tic Tacs. I loved them. So they gave me Ipecac and made me drink, and of course all of that came back up. These ladies, they gave them Ipecac, vomiting stopped. Because they were told it was going to stop. How powerful is this up here? Well, it happens for not only just the placebo effect, but also what we call the nocebo effect, which when you have a negative expectation of something that's going to happen. Here's some examples. They took women. I don't know how they did this. These all happen at hospitals that have been approved to do these types of studies anyway in America. And they've noticed that women who believed they were going to have heart disease actually had heart disease at greater rates than women who believed they weren't going to have heart disease. And there was no difference in their habits and health and all that. It was just a belief. They took, let's go to the third one, poison ivy rashes. They took people who were allergic to poison ivy, and they set a plant that resembled poison ivy beside them, because they were wearing shorts, and wouldn't you know it, they started breaking out in a rash, even though that plant was not poison ivy. They looked at it, it looked like poison ivy, they believed it was poison ivy, their body reacted. They took cancer patients and said, we're going to give you a very powerful drug that's going to make your hair fall out. It was a useless sugar pill or something like that. Cancer patients took it, their hair started falling out. It wasn't from the pill, it's because of what they were told to believe. How powerful is this up here? Ministry of Healing, page 241. I don't usually use these in my seminars, Spirit of Prophecy quotes, try to keep it scientific, but since we're here at camp meeting, I'm taking liberty. She says, disease is sometimes produced and is often greatly aggravated by the imagination. Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so. Many imagine that every slight exposure will cause illness, and the evil effect is produced because it is expected. Many die from disease, the cause of which is wholly imaginary. She continues from the Health Reformer, January of 1871, I frequently turn from the bedside of these self-made invalids, saying to myself, dying by inches, dying of indolence, a disease which no one but themselves can cure. This is powerful stuff up here. Powerful. So I want to ask you, who's in charge of your mind? Who's in charge of your thinking? You know, it can even be subtle. They've done studies in America, and they show that just watching 13 minutes of our evening news can put you in a catastrophizing state of mind, where you think the sky is falling, the world's coming to an end. Just watching 13 minutes of our news in the evening. And so I'm constantly telling people, stop watching the news. Maybe glance at the headlines on the internet or something, but don't watch it. And you have these people that watch not only the evening news, they'll watch the Fox channel and these other channels, and these people are arguing back and forth. It just gets you, tense. You have to be in charge of your thinking. Because if you're not in charge of your thinking, guess what? Somebody else will gladly take charge of your thinking. Because there's something in it for them if they can manipulate you to perform how they need you to perform. Whether it's to make a profit or to vote a certain way, you need to be in charge of your brain. And as a gift given to you by our Creator, that we have that, not only that privilege, but it is a right that cannot be taken from us, no matter what situation we are in. So if you leave this camp from anything from my presentations, it's this: you've got to be in charge of your thinking. Be in charge. It's your right, it's your gift, and it's the expectation that God has on your life to be in charge of your thinking. When we look at research on gratitude, this is another part of having a healthy optimist outlook. We've talked about choosing to be optimistic, we've talked about hopefulness, we've talked about laughter. Gratitude, they've taken people who, they found the people who are the most optimistic are those who take time to write down what they're thankful for every day. And I'm citing this slide because It's not in this slide, I don't think, but in my notes it says, gratitude encouraged a positive cycle of reciprocal kindness among people. One act of gratitude leads to another. Just think what would happen in our churches if instead of holding a grudge because somebody said or didn't say something, we decided we were going to take the action because we have a healthy, optimistic attitude and do something kind and generous for that person or those people. What's going to happen, because it's a law of nature, is you're going to be triggering reciprocal gratitude, waves of reciprocal gratitude within your church. Wouldn't that be a nice thing? Or even in your family, if you want to try it there. Forget the church, go to your family. See what might happen there. Gratitude triggers further gratitude. Are you grateful? Ministry of Healing, page 251. Nothing tends more to promote health of body and soul than does a spirit of gratitude and praise. It is a positive duty to resist melancholy, discontented thoughts and feelings, as much a duty as it is to pray. If we are heaven-bound, how can we go as a band of mourners, groaning and complaining all along the way to our Father's house? Amen. Sir Francis of Assisi says, hey, you know what? If you don't have everything you want, be thankful for the things you don't want that you don't want. So if you don't have everything you want, there's certain things you don't want that you don't have, so thank God for that. That's the way that works. All right. Another component besides being hopeful and choosing to be optimistic and laughter is vision. Do you have a vision for your life? Do you have a vision for your church? Vision gives meaning and purpose. It gives you something to work for, to live for. Dr. Eugene Lang went to school in Brooklyn. Actually, it was Harlem. He went to school in Harlem. He's a self-made millionaire. He was invited back to have the graduation speech for their 6th grade class a few years ago. He was having this nice speech, and he noticed that none of the kids were paying attention to him at all. So, being in Harlem, he thought that telling the Martin Luther King story would connect, and it did. He started talking about having a dream and how you can be in charge of your life and make a difference and create the life that you want. And you could still see that there was something behind their eyes. They weren't fully believing him. And so he made an on-the-spot decision. He said, don't think for a minute that you can't graduate from high school and that you can't go on to college and make something of yourself, because I'm making a promise today. For every one of you who graduates from high school, I will pay your college tuition. Then they perked up. And he knew it was going to take more than just paying their educational bill. He knew it was going to take a support system of teachers and tutors and an intentional way of coaching these kids for the next 6 years. And he put that into place. As it turned out, usually from that class of 52, maybe 25% at best would graduate from high school, and none would go on to college. But in that 6th grade class, 6 years later, all 52 graduated from high school, and 48 of 52 went on to college to get their degrees. And the kids said, for the first time in our lives, we've had something to live for. So what do you have to live for? You must choose something. Something's better than nothing. You must have a vision for your life. And who's going to give you a vision for your life? You're in charge of having a vision for your life. Not me, not the conference, not your mom and dad, not the president, prime minister, whoever. You. You're in charge of having a vision. I love Numbers 13. You have 2 assignments this week. I won't see you again for a while. Read Numbers 13 and 14 and read Minister of Healing, the chapter on mind cure. Mind cure. You'll find it fascinating. There's so much more I wanted to share. I just don't have the time. Numbers 13. Let's talk about outlook. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a leader. So they didn't just send anybody. They sent a leader from every tribe to go spy out the land. You know the story. They went and spied out the land. They came back. Verse 30, the spies came back, and 10 of them said, the people are too big, they're too strong, they're surrounded by enemies on every side. It would be suicide to go. Well, verse 30, they said, then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. Verse 31, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And then this broke out into major fight. And Joshua piped in, he said, listen, God is giving us this land, we can go take it. And then the people had the nerve to suggest, let's stone Joshua and Caleb. They said, let's find us a leader who will take us back to Egypt, because it'd be better to go back to Egypt than to die here like this. And that ticked God off when that happened. So God got into the picture, and he was going to destroy them all right then. And Moses interceded and said, no, if you do that, then you will send a bad message to the Egyptians and these other people that have such a respect of you right now. So God said, okay, I won't destroy them, but what I will do is I'm going to kill those leaders who came back, and the Bible says gave a bad report. Have you heard any bad reports shared in your church? We don't need any bad reports shared at church. If you want to say this is an opportunity, rich with opportunity, that's one thing, but don't give a bad report. That's ridiculous. God doesn't believe in bad reports, because how could you if you're him, right? God sent a plague that killed those guys, and then he told them that you're going to be here in the wilderness for the next 40 years because you did not believe in me, did not follow me fully with your hearts. People said, no, we're so sorry. And they went up to take the land, and they really got a beating from those enemy forces that were in that land. And so they stayed in the promised land for 40 years. So my question to you is, when it comes to these two attitudes, these two outlooks, what do you think? Who was right? 10 spies or Joshua and Caleb? Well, Joshua and Caleb were right, but the other 10 were right as well. They didn't believe they could take the land, so they couldn't. If you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't. It's that simple. So the question for us is, they were both right, and I have to ask myself, Lynell, which group do I want to be in? Which group do you want to be in? I want to be in the group that says, we can take the land. Really, it's we can go receive the land. There isn't any taking it, because God's giving it to us. It's a gift. All we have to basically do is get the Ark of the Covenant and get our battle clothes on and start marching toward the land, and boom, it's ours. I want to be in the group that says we can do it. Because our reality is this. We have access to infinite wisdom. James 1:5, if you need wisdom, ask God for wisdom, basically is what that text says. And we go on to Philippians 4, verse 8, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We have access to infinite power in addition to infinite wisdom. But there's something else. Ephesians 3:20, one of my favorite texts, says, now to him who is able to do far more abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us, which is the Holy Spirit, doing more than we can even imagine. So we have infinite wisdom, we have infinite power, we have infinite guidance to move forward. Why should there be a bad report? Why should we approach the promised land with mourning and grumbling and complaining? It makes no sense. It all has to do with what's starting up here in our attitude. The attitude is determining the choices we make and determines the level of trust we place in our Creator. This needs to be healed. We need a new one of these, and Jesus says he will give us one. The thing is, though, when it comes to having a positive attitude and making these choices, God won't do the living for you. He gives you the knowledge, the power, the guidance. He gives you the grace, but he will not live your life for you. For years and years and years and years and years, I wish that he would just take possession of me and live my life for me, but he doesn't work that way. He works and lives in relationship with me, in companionship with me, and sometimes he carries me. But he will not live my life for me. That's not how it works. I only learned this when I had my son. And as much as I'd like to sometimes live his life for him, I can't do it. He has to learn to walk on his own. He has to learn to use the toilet on his own. He has to learn to eat on his own. He has to live. I cannot live for him. I can live with him, beside him, in companionship with him, in relationship with him, but I cannot live his life. And God will not live your life. So it is up to you to decide today what you're going to do when you leave this place. Some people will go back to church and they'll say, I think we ought to pray about it and see how God leads. Will you stop using prayer as a delay tactic to follow God? God wants you to go. He wants you to do it. You know what? You're going to fall down, you're going to stumble, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail quite a few times along the way, but he doesn't care. Because you're making progress, you're progressing in that direction. And you're going to end up where he wants you to be, but you're not going to end up where he wants you to be if you won't get up off the pew and take a step. And whether you're going to get up off that pew and take a step is determined right here. There's nothing more spiritual about it than that. Either you will because you believe you can, or you won't because you believe you can't. And you're going to spread a bad report like these 10 guys did and maroon God's people even longer in a place that he wants to deliver them from. I think the time has come for the church to stand up and say, regardless of how we feel inside, we believe and we're going forward and that's it. We'll take a leap off the cliff, as Ray Bradbury says. I like what he has to write about writing. And there are some writers who want to have every little chapter, every little plot thread, every little plot point and twist planned out ahead of time, and he gets frustrated with them. And he wrote in his book, he said, jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. So when it comes to God and His leading in your life, jump off the cliff, and He will build your wings on the way down. It'll be just fine. All right. We act in faith and miracles occur. That's a fact of life. I have to ask you this, and I'm out of time, basically. What do you see in this string of letters? This string of letters makes a sentence. What do you see? There you go. Some people are going to see opportunity is now here. Some people are going to see opportunity is nowhere. I'm going to be utterly transparent with you this morning and let you know that when I first saw that string of letters, I saw opportunity is nowhere. So you see the programming I'm dealing with. And when I say it's a constant battle, it's a struggle, it's been for me, and I'm assuming it's going to be for those of you who are like me. But the choice is yours and mine to constantly see opportunity is now here. And ever since I've been learning this, these last few years, I'm consciously trying to take charge. I am in charge. You can't try. It's either you are or you're not. I'm in charge of my attitude. When I see it slipping, I change it. Some of you are blessed to be optimistic naturally because the way you were raised or whatever. Good for you. Some of us aren't. And if you're not there, hey, you're on my team then. We'll figure this out together. If you want to change your outlook, you need to practice optimism, live with vision. You need to have and maintain hope in all situations and express gratitude every single day. Which one of these are you going to start doing today or tomorrow when you leave this place? Which one? Choose one. All of them. Good. If you're struggling to find one, start with gratitude. List one or two things every morning you're thankful for. Pray for peace. Read the Bible. Claim His promises. Read the Psalms. Create a vision. It might take you a few months. It might take you 2 or 3 years to have a vision for your life. It's okay. God's been working with me on a particular vision for my life now for about 6 years, and it's finally starting to come into sharpness. I'm starting to see it. Vision gives meaning, it gives purpose, it gives power. It is a catalyst for being optimistic. Surround yourself with people who are optimistic, who support you. Don't hang around. Well, who said what? It's hard to be an eagle when you're surrounded by chickens. I can't remember what it is. Someone said that. I mean, go try to save the chickens, but you don't have to fellowship with them all the time, right? Okay. Have and maintain hope in all situations. We've talked about that. We've talked about this. Express gratitude, thank God. Focus on your family. The mind and body, we've seen, are intimately connected. And you see, opportunity is now here. As we wrap this up, and I appreciate your indulgence in letting me go all the way to 12:30. In your outline, if you are interested in the answers, I can do this in a minute with you. I'm going to go through rather fast, so some of you will miss the answers, but you can ask your neighbor to give them to you. I want you to take this home. I want you to look at it, reference it. If I've done my job right, then you probably know all of the answers. Number one, we can learn to be positive. We can learn to be positive. I'm glad we can learn. That means we can change. Success or happiness is not a matter of good or bad luck. It happens by design. Success or happiness is not a matter of good or bad luck. It happens by design. Destiny is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. Destiny is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. Optimists keep a positive attitude and focus on their goals. It is a process that begins in the mind. Optimists keep a positive attitude. The next one, optimism can be learned. I want to throw that in there twice in case somebody needed to hear it a second time. Optimism can be learned. The next blank is have a clear vision for your life. Have a clear vision for your life. If you don't have a vision for your life, someone's going to superimpose their vision on it for you. And God doesn't want that. Have a clear vision. Last blank at the bottom there. Gratitude brings joy to your life, so count your blessings every day. Stop counting your burdens and start counting your blessings. And you'll see a change immediately. Gratitude brings joy to your life, so count your blessings every day. That's that. At the end of the day, there are 2 tracks we've been on here these last 3 sessions. One is a personal track of how God wants to bring healing and empowerment to our life. The second track is how he wants to use us to bring it to somebody else's life. So the concept I want you to leave with here today with regards to creation health is God has called you to be a blessing and a bridge. God is going to be a blessing and a bridge. And I'm going to pray for you right now that he will equip you and empower you and begin changing your thinking so that you actually leave this place believing that you're a blessing and a bridge. And then no one's going to be a blessing or a bridge for you, right? Who's going to have to be the blessing and the bridge? You are. And you can. And it's fun. So just go do it. Let's pray. Father in heaven, I thank you so much for your grace, for your power. Lord, you have great patience for people like me who sometimes have had in their hearts, perhaps, ashamed to say, some of the same ideas perhaps those 10 spies had that brought back the bad report. But Lord, your grace covers all. There is no sin you cannot forgive, and I want to have the mind and attitude of Jesus Christ, and so does everyone here. So I pray, Lord, as we bring this health series to a close, that your Holy Spirit will lead every person here into a new reality, a new way of living, and that they will ever be aware that they are called to be a blessing and a bridge, because people are looking to us to decide whether or not you are real. So Lord, let us ever honor you in everything we do and say, that Jesus will be uplifted, and at the end of the day, when you return, there'll be one massive, happy family to go home with you forever. Is our prayer in your name. Amen.